Happy Camper Radio with Skip Huber.
Episode 172 of the Happy Camper Radio Show is now in your ear. Hello, everybody. I'm Skip. I am a happy camper, and I'm going to do my best to make a happy camper out of you. Is it time to replace that old, worn-out existing tent that you've been camping in? Maybe it's time to upgrade, perhaps downgrade. Say the kids are moved out of the house and it's just you and the wife. There's many options available, and tents aren't all that expensive. In fact, I've got a new tent that I plan on purchasing very soon. I'm going to tell you about it on today's edition of Happy Camper Radio.
HappyCamperRadio.com.
And of course, the Happy Camper Radio Show can be heard all around the world by great listeners just like yourself. You can find us in the iTunes Store, on Podbean, Myra Guide, Stitcher, the BlackBerry Podcast Directory, iHeartRadio, and of course on Google Play Music. Tell your friends to tune in to Happy Camper Radio today. You can get in touch with us anytime by calling 404-537-2267. That's 404-537-CAMP. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at Camp Talker, add us to Circles on Google+, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And when you subscribe to our social media pages, we give you a shout-out on the program, and that's exactly what we're going to do right now. Some folks who recently signed up with us here on social media. First of all, to Rubalin Gayaban Alab, Tata G. Lachia, Jessica Yvonne Doctor, Jen Clower Brown, they all like us on Facebook, Daniel Van Ruyen, John Gates of Brisbane, Queensland, Terry Wright of England, Lizzie Zhang, Steve Champ of Omaha, Nebraska, and finally to the folks over at Progressive Industries in Apex, North Carolina. Thank you all so very much. Glad to have you on board, each and every one of you. More importantly, thank you for being a part of this great Happy Camper Radio family. Would you like to be a guest on the program? I'd love to have you. Get in touch with me, Skip, S-K-I-P, at happycamperradio.com. We'll definitely make that happen. Folks, you know, in just a couple days from now, we have this big event that everybody's talking about that only happens once in a lifetime. And, of course, I'm talking about the total solar eclipse. Do you have plans to be out there Monday when the moon crosses in front of the sun for the very first time since I don't know how far back when? I think the next event that's going to be coming through America is going to be in the year 2024, but it's not going to be anywhere near where I live. But from what I'm seeing on television, there are so many people that are cramming into the path of this total solar eclipse. They have taken vacation time. They have taken an extended weekend. They have bought up just about every hotel space. A lot of folks are going camping, and I think that's a good thing too. But, you know, I couldn't believe it maybe 3-4 months ago it would grow to be the big event that it is now. I know in order to catch the full effect of the total solar eclipse down here in Georgia, you're going to have to travel way up to the northeastern part of the state, up in a town of Clayton, and possibly even get into North Carolina. I'm not quite sure of what effect it's going to have here in the metro Atlanta area, but I can tell you this. I'm going to be out there, and I want to see exactly what kind of an effect it's going to have here locally. As far as getting a pair of these glasses, these specialized glasses that they're selling to look up at the sun, I'm not going to do that. I know there are some folks who are buying these up, and they were going online anywhere from $2 all the way up to $30. And sometimes, I'm hearing now, and I haven't actually seen it online, but some people are telling me they're selling them for as much as $100 a pair on eBay. I don't think you're going to be able to buy a pair today and have it delivered to you by Monday, but it's just one of these things that it just blows my mind how crazy people are going over these things. But here's my plan. I am really interested in seeing the total solar eclipse from a ground level standpoint. In other words, I want to be looking off into the distance, and of course, I'm going to be setting up my video camera to get some ground level shots if it gets dark for that 2.5 minute period. I definitely want to have that on video and something I can look back on and talk about later on to say, hey, yes, I was here for the total solar eclipse in the year 2017. As far as looking up into the sun through one of those specialized pair of glasses, and yes, I do have a pair, but I'm not going to be using them. Somebody who may be around me at that time can use them if they want to. I know they're a good pair. I looked at them, but I am just not one who is going to put my eyes in jeopardy under any circumstances whatsoever. The only person that I trust my eyes to is the ophthalmologist. As far as looking at the total solar eclipse, my idea of checking that out will be the following day on the front page of the newspaper. But I just want to see what it's going to be like here locally to see the sun covered up by the moon and what kind of an effect it's going to have. I understand there's a 20 to 30% chance of rain in our area, so I don't know if cloud cover is going to have any effect on this at all. I feel sorry for a lot of the people who are out there right now who have taken the time and invested the money, the travel, the hotel space, the food, all that, to be a part of this, only to get rained upon. And I'm sure that's going to happen in some areas. But if you watch the news today and take a look at what is going on up in the state of Oregon, I'm talking miles and miles and miles of people sitting in their RVs, their automobiles. I don't know if they're sitting at the side of the road or what they're doing, but they are crammed into these areas, all excited and all wanting to take a part in the total solar eclipse. But anyway, enough of that. That's coming up Monday, just a couple days from now, something I'll probably be talking about again on the next edition of Happy Camper Radio. Do you by chance have an existing tent that you're ready to replace? I think over the years, I may have replaced probably a half dozen tents for a variety of reasons. In fact, I have a tent that I am getting ready to replace right now, and I'll tell you in just a little while exactly what I'm going to buy. I did some research, and it's something each and every one of us should do in the event we decide to upgrade, to downgrade, or if we just see that the tent is just worn out and ready to go. You've got to take the time necessary to do your research online and decide what is going to be best for you. Tents are designed to last several years. The longevity, of course, is going to depend on a number of factors. First of all, how often is the tent being used? Weather conditions. Here's where I get nailed each and every time. When I go camping, you better believe it's going to rain at least one day. Weather is going to play a big role. If you're a wintertime camper, it can be even worse. And of course, we also have care and storage. All this plays a big role in determining how many years you're going to have that tent. Some people just simply decide to upgrade for the purpose of upgrading, and that's okay too. The neat thing is, tents are really not all that expensive. Not like they were back in the days. Perhaps you need more space. Look at me, for example. I'm a big guy. I require plenty of room to move around. I like the idea of walking inside of a tent and being able to stand up and not have to stoop down. I don't like being crammed. Any available space that I can have when I go camping, because I do bring things inside that tent. I require that headroom. I require a whole lot of space because of being a big guy, 6'4". Now, maybe the newer model and color has also caught your eye. That could be a reason, too, you may want to upgrade. Maybe you saw a tent at a neighboring camp that you went to, and that caught your attention. I'm always looking around. Fellow campers, and I'm not a copycat, but I always like to see what people are doing. What are they bringing with them to camp? And deciding then, maybe I should have something like that. On the other side of the coin, too, I have been to a number of campgrounds where I saw people setting stuff up, and I'm saying, nope, that's not me. So you got to ask yourself, what do you have in your current gear that is going to tie in to this new tent? Large tents, like I say, are what I'm all about. There are people today, my age, and just as big as I am, that still prefer to climb into a small pup tent, maybe a two-sleeper tent, and getting down on the ground on their hands and knees and climbing inside that sleeping bag. And inside that tent, they're still bringing everything that they need that they're going to require in the middle of the night, maybe their knapsack or whatever else is in there that they're going to have to get into, and they're still not going to have a whole lot of room. I remember the days of getting down on my knees and climbing into that sleeping bag that was on top of this rollout map. And in the middle of the night, if you had to get up and use the restroom, or in my case, you get up in the middle of the night and want to have a snack, you got to climb out and you got to climb back in. Those days are over for me, folks. In a recent camping trip, a neighboring camper had a tent that really caught my eye. And I said, wow, I would just love to have something like that. And you can look this up online, folks. It's a Coleman Prairie Breeze. It sleeps 9 people. Just looking at it, and I think at one time or another, I did post it on social media because it was a tent that I wanted so bad. I like the design. I like the color. I like the shape of it. Everything about that tent had my name written all over it. That tent goes for about $230. I also did some research online. Again, this is something that I encourage everybody to do before they decide to go out and invest money in something that hopefully is going to last them many, many years. I watched a YouTube video and saw how 2 people set this tent up. I would have one today except for one big factor: assembly. As you get older, you try to make things as simple as possible for yourself. You got to consider the size of the tent. You've got to consider how heavy it is, how big it is. Is assembly going to be easy? Is disassembly going to be just as difficult? How often do you plan on using the tent? Will it cause you more hassle than it's worth? And when you go camping, you want to be as hassle-free as you possibly can. The tent that I have right now, and I know I posted pictures of that online too, just like the Coleman Prairie Breeze tent, it requires assembly, which means you've got to lay the tent out. You've got to stake it out. Then you've got to take the tent poles and you've got to assemble them together. Unlike the days when I was growing up and you had those big aluminum tent poles that you had to be very careful with because things, if they get moved around or bumped around too much, those aluminum tent poles could bend very easily, and that'll put a damper on your camping trip before you know it. I like the tent poles today because they're made of fiberglass. They've got this little bungee cord that runs between all of them, and you simply assemble and disassemble them very easily. But the fact remains, you want as less hassle as you possibly can when you go camping. If you are a solo camper like myself, and you're getting up there in your ages, and you don't want to be bothered with all that nonsense. So this is one of the big reasons that I decided against getting the Coleman Prairie Breeze. And believe me, folks, for a person just like myself, it would accommodate my queen-size sleeping bag. It would accommodate my queen-size air mattress, the little end table that I bring along, my big knapsack full of clothing, and that big picture window. I often envision about bringing in there a 6-foot table and setting up my podcast gear and doing my radio show right there from that big picture window in the Coleman Prairie Breeze. But that's beside the point right now. I've decided on something that's going to get me by probably until the day I die, because I try to keep my tent in good shape and do everything that's necessary to increase its longevity. How about your old tent? What kind of condition is your old tent in these days? Has it seen its better days? Although you're shopping for a new tent, ask yourself, is that tent still usable? Could somebody possibly use it even though you're going out and buying something new? Does it have rips and tears in it? Is it requiring some patchwork? Is the rain fly wore out? Did you end up getting rained upon in your last camping trip? Are the tent poles breaking? Or are they malfunctioning? Is something wrong with that tent where you're just ready to be done and over with it? If you answered yes to any of these questions, well, then it's probably time for you to replace it. But if the tent is still good, if it's got a couple good more seasons out of it, you may want to hold on to it. And I'll tell you why. Because when family comes in from out of town, when relatives show up, you have more people coming to your house to spend the night than you have bed space, then you may want to even consider pitching that tent outside and letting maybe the kids, who probably would enjoy sleeping outside more than sleeping inside, to go out there and enjoy it. You might even consider donating it to a first-time camper or a camping family. That is something I am very much considering with my existing tent. It's not ready for the trash can. It's not ready for the public landfill. It still has a few good years to it. It probably needs cleaned up a little bit, and I've got no problem doing that. But once I get that in place and get my new tent in place, I'm probably going to be looking for somebody locally here to see if they're planning on going camping, especially if they have kids and they want to get out and enjoy themselves and they have a limited budget and they just want to get started. It would really make my heart feel good to be able to donate that tent to that type of a family. Although camping is relatively inexpensive, some people do need a little help along the way. A gift of a donated tent might be just the inspiration they need to get started. They might be thinking about going camping, but, they just realize, well, I got to buy a sleeping bag. I got to buy a camp stove. I got to buy a cooler, all this other stuff. And they're starting to add up these dollar figures in their head. But if you can help them along the way, you're not going to be using this tent anymore, and you just want to go ahead and be done and over with it because you just bought this brand new tent that you can't wait to get out and start using, then do the right thing. Donate that tent to somebody who can truly use it, and you know that they will use it. Now, I did have a tent prior to the one that I'm using right now, and I trashed that tent many years ago. It was a weekend camping trip in the North Georgia mountains that turned into a disaster after an early morning rain. I had the rain fly in place. Everything was going as well as it possibly could go. I'll still go camping if there is a call for showers in the forecast, because there have been times I've gone camping and it didn't rain at all, and it turned out to be picture-perfect weather. I had that tent for a number of years. I had my cot set up on the inside. I had my sleeping bag, had everything in place. The rain fly was in place, and the rain moved in the middle of the night, and I was awakened to find out that I was swimming in my sleeping bag. Everything inside that tent got soaked. It was started out being a very good weekend. I was there with friends, and it ended up being a very disappointing day. We had a fire burning all afternoon, and everything that I had was spread out around that area in hopes of drying things out. But my frustration continued to wear, and throughout the morning, I just later on decided, all right, I'm going to pack it in. I'm going to head on home. We planned on leaving the very next morning, so I lost one day of camping, and I felt bad leaving my friends up there at camp. But, it was time for me to pack it in and go home. I had that tent for a very long time, and I don't care what it is, folks. It may be a tent, it may be a sleeping bag, it may be a cooler, it may be your vehicle. Everything is going to wear out eventually. And you really hate for that to happen in the middle of a camping trip. But the rain fly wore out, and if you know how the rain flies are, they sit directly above this screen that's sewn into the top of your tent in case you're not going to be using the rain fly. And you can look up there in the middle of the night and just look through that screen and watch the stars and watch the tree limbs blowing in the wind. It's a very, very peaceful setting, and I enjoy that. But I always am on my guard because if there's the slightest call for rain in the forecast, I put that rain fly on. I do not like getting rained on in the middle of the night, and I don't think you do too. But I've got to admit, the tents that I did have over the years, they provided me with several good years of camping opportunities. Definitely consider the age of the tent and the condition. You got to ask yourself, is it really worth holding on to? But here again, folks, I am right now considering a brand new tent. And the one I have decided upon, and this is just my personal preference, folks. You may not be into something like this. Whatever you and the family decide upon, whatever works for you, that is the tent you've got to buy. You've got to consider how much the tent is going to cost. You got to look at your budget. Is it going to sleep the number of people that you are going to put inside that tent, in addition to all the other things that you're going to be bringing inside? Just don't buy the idea, well, I only have 4 people in my family, but this tent sleeps 8 people. That's going to be 4 people, 8 people, like in a sardine can. They even show you that on the box when you buy the tent. It shows you how people are going to be laid out in that tent in the middle of the night. And there never is going to be any room for anything else. I remember my kids when they were younger, yes, they would bring everything but the kitchen sink. I thought I was bringing a lot of things to camp. But nowadays, it's just me, and yes, I still require a lot of space when I go camping. But the tent that I'm going to buy for myself is a Coleman Instant Tent. And if you don't know what an instant tent is, it's pretty much a tent that when you take it out of the bag, everything is right there. It already has the poles attached to it. All you have to do is twist and extend the poles and open up your tent. It's 14 by 10 feet, and it comes in its protective case, of course. You know, you just open it up, you stake it out. And I watched a YouTube video where two campers were assembling this tent. And from start to finish, they had this tent up in 3 minutes. Now, they also have a 10-person model tent, and I think that's probably going to be a little bit too much tent space for a person just like myself. But the tent itself is very attractive, and it's going to accommodate all my needs, and it runs around $285. This will probably be the last tent that I will ever buy. Always make sure that you're going to install that rain fly and keep it handy, just in case there's the slightest chance of rain in the forecast. And here's something else I do want to share with you folks, because this is extremely important. I learned a hard lesson a very long time ago. You don't necessarily have to learn the lessons that I learn, because they can be costly, and it's going to require a little bit more work on your end to clean things up in the event you don't follow this advice. When you're breaking camp, the very first thing you want to do, yes, we're all bummed out. We got to go home. All good things come to an end sometime. But what you want to do is you want to take everything out of the tent. Take your sleeping bags out, disassemble your cots, roll up your mat, bring your knapsacks, everything that's inside that tent, take it out, put it in the back of your SUV, your car, your pickup truck, whatever you're driving. And before you do anything else, sweep the floor of that tent. Then get a bucket of soapy water and thoroughly clean the floor. Rinse and dry it out and allow it to thoroughly dry before breaking down your tent. And I'm going to tell you why. I never thought about this a long time back, because it's very easy to get caught up in all the excitement of everything that's going on. You're going out there to have fun. You're not thinking about politics. You're not thinking about what's going on at home. You're not thinking about the job or anything like that. But one thing I did when I had a brand new tent, I swept it out and I thought everything was going to be okay. When I broke that tent down, it didn't dawn on me there was still dirt on that floor. It worked its way into the floor of the tent, and when I disassembled the poles and allowed the tent to collapse, the floor is now attached to the ceiling of the tent. And I folded it up, which makes matters even worse. And it wasn't until my next camping trip when I set everything up and I climbed in my sleeping bag and I looked up at the ceiling of the tent, and what did I see? A very dirty ceiling. It took me a couple minutes to realize exactly what happened and how that roof of that tent got so dirty. Always take the time to clean up after yourself, sweep the floor, get some soapy water, clean it, rinse it, dry it out, and while it's drying, then you can go ahead and take everything else and break it down and put it in your vehicle. And the last thing you need to do at that point is take your tent and fold it up, and you'll be good to go. Whether you decide to purchase a new tent or retain the tent you're currently using, proper care and maintenance will provide you with many future camping trips for years to come. If you have a tent that you're perfectly satisfied with right now, there's no need to buy one. You may not need to buy one for 10 years. But this episode is going to be around for quite a while, so if that time ever comes, you decide to go ahead and get something new, get something better, this will help you out a little bit. But get a good tent. If you're going to spend the money, buy something good. You can purchase them in the camping supply stores. You can get them at your local Walmart stores, or you can even purchase them online. You don't necessarily have to buy a name brand tent, but there are tents out there that will serve the purpose. And there's always little features you're going to be looking for, too. The one I'm hoping to find out when I get this tent, and I don't know if the Coleman Instant Tent has this, but some of these tents today have these little ports at the side where you can take a heater hose from your 20-pound propane tank, which is parked outside right next to your tent. If, of course, you're a wintertime camper, you're going to heat up your tent in the middle of the night. And you go ahead and run that hose right into the inside of the tent and connect it to your tent heater. I think those things are so neat. With the tent I have right now, I've just got to keep the door cracked right there at the very bottom where the two zippers come together, and that's how my hose comes in to the inside of the tent. And I don't have to get up in the middle of the night to change out the tank or to change out the 1-pound tanks, because some people carry a number of 1-pound tanks with them and do not bring a 20-pound tank. I like getting my entire night's rest and not have to worry about getting up and finding the tent is cold in the middle of the night because the fuel ran out. So, there's little features that you can always look for, something that's going to attract your attention to the tent you want to buy. Whether it's a big tent, a small tent, take your time, do careful shopping, and make it a family event. Let everybody decide what tent you want to buy, because it's not just you that's going to be going camping and having a good time. Everybody in your family is going to take a part too. And camping trips, my friends, it doesn't get any better than that. It's time now for our featured campground of the week here on the Happy Camper Radio Show.
Happy Camper Radio.
And this week, I want to take you out to the state of Wisconsin to the East Twin Campground. It's open all the way through September 4th. And if you happen to be in Wisconsin anytime next week and you want to get out there, this would be the time to do it. Otherwise, keep it in mind for 2018. But it's a great campground located on a sparkling 110-acre lake. The area provides access to a beautiful portion of the Chequamegon National Forest in northwestern Wisconsin. The campground is situated in a maple, birch, and hemlock forest with many sites overlooking the lake. A variety of birds and wildlife, including elk, eagle, loons, blue heron, and other species, make their home near the campground. A variety of recreational activities are available, including fishing, boating, and swimming on the adjacent lake. A boat ramp is located about a half-mile east of the campground, providing access to East Twin Lake, and also features a walk-in portage to West Twin Lake. Miles of hiking and mountain bike trails are located nearby. Just down the road is an established Blue Heron Rookery. East Twin Campground offers 2 tent walk-in sites for those looking for a somewhat more secluded camping experience. Each site is equipped with tables, campfire ring, and grills. Accessible vault toilets and drinking water are provided. Trash collection and aluminum can recycling is also available at the campground. Take a look at the activities and amenities right there on their homepage. Also check out some of the know-before-you-go items. Remember, don't move firewood. Purchase your firewood locally and burn it on-site. Protect those forests from those tree-killing insects. It's a good habit to get into. But this is a great campground to go camping at, a family-oriented campground in the state of Wisconsin. If you don't get there this year, consider it next year. It's the East Twin Campground. It is our featured campground of the week here on the Happy Camper Radio Show.
Skip Huber on happycamperradio.com.
And of course, if you have a campground you would like for us to feature on the show, that magical place you've been to that you want the whole world to know about, this is the venue right here to make that happen. Send me an email, Skip, S-K-I-P, at happycamperradio.com. Be sure to include a link to the campground website. And that's going to wrap up this edition of Happy Camper Radio. Get out there and enjoy the total solar eclipse of 2017. It's only 20-some hours away from now. I know I'll be out there. Remember, friends, every pet deserves a loving home. You do exactly like I did. Visit your local shelter and adopt a pet today. You can find us online 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at www.happycamperradio.com. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at Camp Talker. Add us 2 circles on Google+, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. The Happy Camper Radio Show is a presentation of Skip Huber Productions. I'm Skip. I am a happy camper, no question about that. And I'm going to do my very best to make a happy camper out of you. We'll talk to you again real soon. Enjoy yourself, everybody. This is Happy Camper Radio.
Happy Camper Radio.